Welcome, I'm Deanna Norelli, registered dietitian and yoga health coach with Tulasara Wellness. We're talking today about the anti-inflammatory lifestyle, and I'd like to highlight today a study that came out in November of 2020 from Stat Pearls that gave a nice overview of chronic systemic inflammation. And you might wonder, do I have this? Well, I want to give you some symptoms to look for, some diseases that might stand out, and also some practical things you can do on a regular basis to reduce your risk of chronic systemic inflammation. So we're not talking about an acute injury here. We're talking about inflammation that's building up over time. And the World Health Organization is identifying that these chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant causes of death in the world. Some of this might sound familiar, right? Heart disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes, even Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other age-related disorders, all related to inflammation. What are the risk factors? How do you know if you're at risk? Well, age is a risk factor. Obesity, we know definitely in our country, obesity is on the rise, but that really is a global situation as well. The diet, there is so much you can do with your diet. So we'll be talking about inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods. You're going to be a pro by the end of this series of videos. Smoking is a risk factor for inflammation. Low sex hormones, which was new to me, but stress and sleeping disorders. So what are the symptoms? How do you know if you're struggling or suffering from chronic systemic inflammation? You might have body pain. You might have chronic fatigue, maybe insomnia. What about depression, anxiety, any type of mood disorders? Any kind of gastrointestinal complications, maybe diarrhea, constipation, even reflux, weight gain or weight loss, and frequent infections. These are all symptoms that you might be suffering from chronic inflammation. Well, good news, folks. There are many dietary and lifestyle changes that can be made and helpful in removing these inflammatory triggers. So we'll be breaking each one of these down. Today, what I want to do is just highlight what is to come as we discuss this topic moving forward. It's so exciting. We'll be talking about a low glycemic diet. Diets with high glycemic index are related to high risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and stroke. So we'll break that down and give you examples of what that looks like. Reducing your intake of total fat, saturated fat, and trans fat. Boy, that's a whole video in and of itself. We'll talk about what those are and how you can reduce your intake of those. Of course, fruits and veggies, right? As long as I've been a dietitian, that message has never changed, and it probably never will. Eat your fruits and veggies. Fiber, that message remains the same no matter what diet you're on, getting your fiber intake. Nuts, we'll talk about getting nuts in the diet and what those things can do for your inflammatory response. What about tea, green tea, black tea, cumin or curcumin rather. So this is turmeric and curry and foods like that. Fish oil, supplement or eating fish. This I found interesting, mung beans, and I brought them today. I brought a couple props today, but I use this in my Indian cooking. They specifically mentioned these beans, split mung beans. I'll tell you more about those. Brought my fish oil to show you today, and I also brought turmeric because this is something that is at all the major grocery stores that you can afford and get into your cooking, and drinking more tea. So these are practical things. And then, of course, some of these micronutrients that we know are key. Inflammation and immunity go hand in hand. So this might sound familiar. Magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin E, zinc, and selenium. Of course, exercise, right? So if left untreated, This chronic systemic inflammation generally carries a poor prognosis. In fact, the World Health Organization is identifying that 3 out of 5 of us are living and dying with some form of this inflammation. So we'll be exploring these topics soon, and I hope you'll join me as we talk about the most effective ways to reduce your inflammation. Stay tuned.